Captain Velthari pressed his pale hand against the cold metal wall of his ship. The wall was cracked. Air was leaking out into space. He could hear it hissing like an angry snake. His ship, the Harmony's Light, was dying around him. 3 days. Ago, everything had been normal. His crew of 47 Zephyrians had been on a peaceful mission to study star formations in the Outer Rim. They were scientists, not soldiers. The Galactic Council had sent them because Zephyrians were good at finding beautiful things in space. Their large eyes could see colors that other races could not see. Their thin bodies needed very little food or air. They were perfect for long space missions. But then the Ravagers came. Velthari closed his eyes and tried not to remember. The first attack had come without warning. Hundreds of dark ships had appeared from nowhere. They looked like giant insects made of metal and bone. Their ships were alive in some terrible way. They moved like hunters, surrounding the Harmony's Light like wolves around a lost sheep. The Ravagers did not want to talk. They did not send messages. They just attacked. Their weapons were strange. They did not use lasers or missiles like normal ships. Instead, they used something that drained all the power from the Harmony's Light. The lights went out. The engines stopped. Even the emergency systems failed. Velthari had tried to surrender. He had broadcast messages in every language he knew. The Galactic Council had taught all its members that surrender was always better than fighting. Violence was wrong. War was a thing of the past. Civilized beings found peaceful solutions to their problems. The Ravagers did not care about civilized solutions. They had boarded his ship with creatures that looked like giant ants with too many teeth. These creatures moved fast and killed everything they touched. They seemed to eat the life force of his crew members. Velthari had watched in horror as his friends turned gray and fell down dead. Only 12 of his crew were still alive. They were hiding in the emergency shelter deep inside the ship. The shelter had thick walls and its own air supply, but that air would not last much longer. Maybe 6 hours. Maybe less. The Ravagers were still out there. Their ships surrounded the Harmony's Light like vultures waiting for something to die. They were patient. They knew his crew would run out of air soon. Then they would come inside and finish what they started. Velthari looked at his remaining crew. They were all young. They had joined the science mission because they wanted to explore the galaxy and learn new things. Now they sat in the dark, their skin flickering with pale light. When Zephyrians were scared, their skin glowed. Right now, they all looked like dying stars. "Captain," whispered Neela, his communications officer. She was the youngest member of his crew. "What do we do?" Velthari did not know what to tell her. The Galactic Council had never taught him how to fight. His people had not fought a war in over 1,000 years. They had forgotten how to be violent. They had forgotten how to hate. These things were supposed to be good. Violence was wrong. Hate was evil. But now Velthari wished his people remembered how to fight. "We could try to send a message," said Corin, his science officer. "Maybe someone will hear us." "Who would come?" asked Neela. "The council ships are too far away. Even if they heard us, they could not get here in time." "What about the other races?" suggested Theron, his navigation officer. "The Kraliks have fast ships, or the Ventorans." Velthari shook his head. "The Kraliks are traders, not fighters. The Ventorans would not risk their ships to save us. No one in the council knows how to fight these things." They sat in silence. Outside, they could hear the Ravagers moving around their ship. The creatures made clicking sounds like giant insects. Sometimes they would bang on the walls of the shelter. They were testing for weak spots. "Wait," said Corin suddenly. "What about the humans?" The other crew members looked at him like he was crazy. "The humans?" said Neela. "The Deathworlders? They are not part of the council." "Exactly," said Corin. "The council rejected them because they were too violent. But maybe that is what we need now. Maybe we need someone who knows how to fight." Velthari thought about this. He had heard stories about humans. They came from a world called Earth. It was a terrible place where everything tried to kill everything else. The plants were poisonous. The animals were huge and had sharp teeth. The weather could freeze you or burn you or blow you away with giant storms. The humans who lived on this world had become monsters themselves. They fought wars with weapons that could destroy entire cities. They had almost killed themselves many times. When they finally reached space, the Galactic Council had refused to let them join. Humans were too dangerous, too violent, too unpredictable, but humans had their own ships now. They had built a small empire on the edge of known space. Most council races avoided them. There were stories about human pirates and human mercenaries. People said that humans would fight anyone for the right price. Do you think they would help us? Asked Velthari. I do not know, admitted Corin, but they are the only ones who might be able to fight the Ravagers. Velthari made his decision. He crawled over to the emergency communication panel. It was an old system that used radio waves instead of quantum channels. The Ravagers had not bothered to block it because they thought no one used such primitive technology anymore. His hands shook as he set up the message. He had never tried to contact humans before. He did not even know if they spoke Galactic Standard. But he had to try. This is Captain Velthari of the Galactic Council ship Harmonies. Light, he said into the microphone. We are under attack by Ravager ships. Our crew is dying. Our ship is failing. We need immediate assistance from anyone who can fight. Please help us. He added his location coordinates and set the message to repeat on all frequencies. Then he sat back and waited. Minutes passed. The air in the shelter was getting thin. His crew members were breathing hard. Outside, the Ravager creatures were getting louder. They had found something and were excited about it. Then the radio crackled. To life. This is Commander Hyunwoo of the Terran Defense Fleet Destroyer Soul's Fury, said a rough voice in broken Galactic Standard. We got your message. We are coming to help you. Hold on. Velthari stared at the radio in shock. A human had answered. Not only that, but the human was coming to help them. How many ships do you have? Asked Velthari. 8 ships total, replied Hyunwoo. 6 destroyers and 2 dreadnoughts. We will be there in 1 hour. 8 ships? Whispered Neela. There are hundreds of Ravager ships out there. But Velthari felt something he had not felt in 3 days. He felt hope. Maybe 8 human ships would not be enough. Maybe the humans would take one look at the Ravagers and run away. But at least someone was coming. At least someone had answered their call for help. Thank you, he said into the radio. Thank you for coming. Do not thank us yet, replied Hyunwoo. We have not won anything yet. Just stay alive until we get there. The radio went quiet. Velthari looked at his crew. They were all staring at him with wide eyes. They had heard the stories about humans. They knew that humans were violent and dangerous. But right now, violent and dangerous sounded exactly like what they needed. Outside their shelter, the Ravagers continued to hunt. But for the first time in 3 days, Velthari was not afraid. Help was coming. The Deathworlders were coming. He just hoped they would arrive in time. Commander Hyunwoo stood on the bridge of the Soul's Fury and watched the stars rush past his ship. His destroyer was moving as fast as its engines could push it. Behind him, 7 other human ships followed in tight formation. They were going to fight an enemy they had never seen before, to save aliens who feared them. How long until we reach the coordinates? He asked. 43 minutes, replied Lieutenant So Jin from her position at the navigation console. She was young for her rank, but she had steady hands and a quick mind. The alien ship is sending out a weak signal. I think their power is almost gone. Hyunwoo nodded. He had been in space for 15 years, but he had never received a distress call from the Galactic Council before. Most council races would rather die than ask humans for help. They thought humans were savages, monsters from a death world who solved every problem with violence. Maybe they were right. Hyunwoo had grown up on Earth during the resource wars. He had seen cities burn. He had watched his own brother die in the fighting. When Earth finally reached the stars, its people brought their knowledge of war with them. Sir, called communications, Specialist Ji Young from her station. I am getting strange signals from the target area. The computers cannot translate them properly. What kind of signals? They sound like insects, sir. Lots of insects talking to each other. Hyunwoo felt his stomach tighten. He had heard rumors about creatures called Ravagers. Pirates and traders sometimes whispered stories about them in the bars on the outer rim. They said the Ravagers were not really alive, but they were not machines either. They were something in between. Something hungry. "Captain Minho is requesting to speak with you," said Ji Young. Hyun-woo pressed a button, and the face of Captain Minho appeared on his screen. Minho commanded the dreadnought Busan's Hammer, the largest ship in their small fleet. He was an older man with scars on his face from the Mars colony uprising. "Commander," said Minho, "my sensors are picking up a lot of enemy ships. Maybe 200, maybe more. Can you tell what kind of ships they are?" "Negative. They do not match any designs in our database, but they are big and there are many of them." Hyun-woo thought about this. 8 human ships against 200 unknown enemies. The smart thing to do would be to turn around and go home. But humans did not always do the smart thing. "We continue the mission," he decided. Minho smiled. "I was hoping you would say that. My crew is ready for a fight." The transmission ended. Hyun-woo looked around his bridge. His crew was preparing for battle. Chief Engineer Eun-ji was checking their weapons systems. Medical Officer Tai-min was setting up the sick bay for wounded crew members. Everyone knew their job. That was the thing about humans. They were good at fighting, because they had to be. Earth was a world where everything tried to kill you. The weather, the animals, the plants, even the bacteria. Humans had survived by becoming very good at violence. "Sir," said So-jin, "we are receiving another transmission from the alien ship." "Put it through." The voice that came through the speakers was weak and scared. "Commander Hyun-woo, this is Captain Velthari. Our air is almost gone. The Ravagers are trying to break into our shelter. How much longer?" 30 minutes, replied Hyun-woo. "Stay strong. We are coming." "Thank you," whispered Velthari. "I hope you understand what you are facing. The Ravagers are not like normal enemies. Their weapons drain all power from our ships. Their creatures seem to feed on life itself." Hyun-woo frowned. Energy-draining weapons were bad news for modern starships. Most human technology depended on power cores and energy shields, but humans had learned to be creative with their weapons. "Yoon-ji," he called to his chief engineer. "Did you hear that?" "Yes, sir," replied Yoon-ji. She was a small woman with quick fingers and a talent for making broken things work again. "If they can drain our power systems, we need to think old-fashioned." "What do you mean?" "Kinetic weapons, sir. Railguns, missile launchers, things that work without energy shields or computer targeting. We still have our emergency backup systems. They use chemical batteries instead of the main power core." Hyun-woo smiled. This was why he liked Yoon-ji. She always found solutions to impossible problems. "How long do you need to switch our weapons to backup power?" "Give me 20 minutes. "You have 15. Yoon-ji ran off the bridge toward the engine room. Hyun-woo turned to his weapons officer. "Jae-sung, prepare all kinetic weapons for manual targeting. If our computers go down, we fight like our grandfathers did." "Yes, sir," replied Jae-sung. He was a big man who had served on mining ships before joining the military. He knew how to operate heavy machinery without computer help. The minutes passed slowly. Hyun-woo watched his crew work. They were scared, but they did not show it. Fear was useful. It kept you alive, but panic would get you killed. "Commander," said Ji Young, "I am picking up transmissions from the other ships. Captain Minho wants to know our battle plan." Hyun-woo thought about this. How do you fight an enemy you have never seen? How do you plan for weapons that do not exist in your databases? "Tell all ships to spread out," he ordered. "Wide formation. If they can drain power, we do not want them to hit multiple ships at once. And tell everyone to prepare for boarding actions." "Boarding actions, sir? If their weapons shut down our ships, they will try to board us. Make sure all crew members have weapons and protective gear." This was another thing humans were good at. Fighting inside spaceships. Most alien races had never developed tactics for ship-to-ship combat. They preferred to fight at long distance with energy weapons, but humans had been fighting in close quarters for thousands of years. "Contact!" called So-jin suddenly. "I have the alien ship on sensors, and... oh no!" Hyun-woo looked at his display screen. The Harmony's light was there, a beautiful ship that looked like it was made of crystal and light. But surrounding it were the Ravager ships. They were horrible to look at. The ships seemed to be part machine and part living creature. They had hulls that looked like insect shells. Their weapons looked like giant stingers or claws. Some of the ships were moving in ways that normal ships could not move, twisting and turning like swimming animals. "How many?" asked Hyunwoo. I count 237 enemy ships, replied Sojin. The largest one is 10 times bigger than our dreadnoughts. Hyunwoo felt his crew tense up around him. These were bad odds. Very bad odds. But they had come this far. All ships, he said into his communication system. This is Commander Hyunwoo. You can see what we are facing. No one will think less of you if you want to turn around now. The replies came back quickly. This is Captain Minho. The Busan's hammer is ready to fight. This is Captain Dong-soo of the Gwangju's Pride. My crew voted. We stay. One by one, all 8 ships reported ready for battle. Hyunwoo felt proud of his people. They were outnumbered 30-1, but they would not abandon the aliens who had asked for their help. Yoonji to bridge, came a voice over the intercom. Backup systems are online. We can fight for about 2 hours before the chemical batteries run out. That will have to be enough, said Hyunwoo. All ships, attack formation. Target the smaller. Ships first. And remember, we are not just fighting for ourselves. We are fighting to show the galaxy what humans can do. The 8 human ships moved forward into battle. Behind them, space was empty and cold. Ahead of them, an alien swarm waited to destroy them. But humans had been fighting impossible battles for their entire history. Today would be no different. The first Ravager weapon hit the Soul's Fury like a wave of darkness. Every light on the bridge went out. The main engines stopped humming. Even the air recycling system fell silent. For a moment, Commander Hyunwoo thought his ship was dead. Then, the emergency lights came on. Red lights bathed the bridge in an angry glow. The backup systems were working. All stations report, ordered Hyunwoo. Navigation online, called Sojin. Using backup power. Weapons ready, said Jae-sung. Manual targeting systems active. Engineering here, came Yoonji's voice over the intercom. Main power is completely drained, but backup systems are holding steady. Hyunwoo smiled grimly. The Ravagers had expected their weapon to kill his ship completely. They had not planned for humans who were stubborn enough to build 3 different power systems. Target the closest enemy ship, he ordered. Fire all railguns. The Soul's Fury shuddered as its kinetic weapons fired. Tungsten rods shot out at incredible speed. They hit a Ravager ship that looked like a giant metal spider. The rods punched clean through its hull, leaving glowing holes. The Ravager ship seemed surprised. It twisted in space like a wounded animal. Strange fluids leaked from its holes, freezing instantly in the vacuum. Direct hit, reported Jae-sung. Enemy ship is damaged but still moving. Around them, the battle was spreading. The human fleet had split into 4 groups of 2 ships each. They were moving fast, using the asteroids in the area as cover. The Ravagers were trying to surround them, but human ships were smaller and more nimble. Sir, called Ji-young, I am getting reports from the other ships. The Gwangju's Pride and Incheon's Vengeance have both lost main power, but their backup systems are working. What about casualties? No ships lost yet, but Captain Dong-soo reports that Ravager creatures are trying to board his ship. Hyunwoo cursed under his breath. This was what he had been afraid of. The Ravagers did not just want to destroy human ships, they wanted to feed on the crews. Tell all ships to seal their airlocks and prepare for boarding defense, he ordered. The Soul's Fury shook again as more Ravager weapons hit it. But the backup power systems kept working. Human engineers had learned to build things that could survive almost anything. Enemy ship approaching from starboard, warned Sojin. It looks like it wants to attach to our hull. Not if I can help it, growled Jae-sung. He swiveled the manual railgun turret and fired a burst of tungsten rods. The approaching Ravager ship was torn apart, its pieces spinning away into space, but more ships were coming. The Ravagers had realized that their energy-draining weapons were not enough to stop the humans. Now they were trying to overwhelm the human fleet with numbers. This is Captain Minho, came a voice over the radio. My ship is surrounded. Requesting immediate assistance. Hyunwoo looked at his tactical display. The Busan's hammer was in the center of a swarm of Ravager ships. They were attaching to its hull like parasites. All ships, ordered Hyunwoo, converge on the Busan's hammer. We do not leave anyone behind. The human ships turned and raced toward the dreadnought. As they got closer, Hyunwoo could see Ravager creatures crawling on its hull. They looked like giant ants with metal shells and too many legs. Jae-sung, can you target those creatures without hitting the Busan's hammer? Negative, sir. Too risky. We might damage their hull. Hyun-woo made a quick decision. Yoon-ji, prepare a boarding pod. I am going over there myself. Sir, that is too dangerous, protested So-jin. Those are our people over there, replied Hyun-woo. We do not abandon our own. He left the bridge and ran toward the ship's small cargo bay. There, Yoon-ji was preparing a one-man boarding pod. It was basically a metal ball with a rocket engine and a drill on the front. The pod is ready, said Yoon-ji. But, sir, these creatures can drain life energy. If they touch you, then I will not let them touch me, said Hyun-woo. He climbed into the pod and sealed the hatch. The pod shot out of the Soul's fury like a bullet. Hyun-woo steered it toward the Busan's hammer, weaving between Ravager ships. Their weapons tried to track him, but the pod was too small and too fast. He crashed into the dreadnought's hull near an airlock. The drill cut through the metal quickly. As soon as there was a hole big enough, Hyun-woo climbed out of the pod. The surface of the ship was covered with Ravager creatures. They were using their claws to cut through the hull plating. When they saw Hyun-woo, they turned toward him with hungry eyes. Hyun-woo pulled out his sidearm. It was an old-fashioned chemical explosive weapon that did not need any power source. He fired rapidly, hitting the closest creatures. They made horrible screeching sounds and fell off the ship into space. More creatures came at him. Hyun-woo kept firing and moving. He had trained for this kind of fighting in the tunnels under Seoul during the Resource Wars. The principles were the same. Keep moving, use cover, never let them surround you. He reached the airlock and found it had been torn open. Inside the ship, he could hear the sounds of fighting. The crew of the Busan's hammer was fighting for their lives. Hyun-woo ran through the corridors. He found Captain Min-ho and his security team in the engine room, surrounded by Ravager creatures. The creatures were tall and thin, with 4 arms, and mouths full of sharp teeth. "Captain!" shouted Hyun-woo as he fired into the group of creatures. "This way!" Min-ho turned and saw him. "Commander, how did you get here?" "I took a shortcut," replied Hyun-woo. "We need to get your engines back online." The creatures drained all our power. Even the backup systems are dead. Hyun-woo looked around the engine room. There were manual controls for the fusion reactor, but they had not been used in decades. Most crews did not even know they existed. "Yoon-ji," he called into his radio, "I need you to walk me through a manual reactor start." "Sir, that is extremely dangerous. If you get the sequence wrong, the reactor could explode. If I do not try, this ship is dead anyway." Yoon-ji's voice came through the radio, guiding him through the process. Hyun-woo worked quickly while Min-ho and his crew fought off more Ravager creatures. The creatures seemed confused by human tactics. They were used to enemies who tried to use technology against them. Humans just used bullets and explosives. "Reactor online," announced Hyun-woo as the engine room filled with light. "You have power." "All crew," called Min-ho over the ships. "Intercom, Reapel Borders. We are back in business." The Busan's hammer's weapons came back online. Its railguns and missile launchers began firing at the Ravager ships that were still attached to its hull. The creatures outside were blasted into space. Hyun-woo made his way back to his boarding pod. As he flew back to the Soul's Fury, he looked around the battlefield. The human ships were still outnumbered, but they were winning. Ravager ships were drifting dead in space. Others were retreating. "Status report," he called as soon as he was back on his bridge. "We have destroyed 47 enemy ships," reported Jae-sung. "Our casualties are light, a few wounded, but no ships lost." "What about the alien ship?" "The Harmony's light is safe," said Ji-young. "The Ravagers have stopped attacking it. They are too busy fighting us." Hyun-woo nodded. The plan was working. The Ravagers had expected to face enemies who relied on advanced technology. Instead, they were fighting humans who used simple, brutal weapons that could not be drained or disrupted. "Sir," called So-jin urgently, "the largest Ravager ship is moving. It is heading straight for us." Hyun-woo looked at the display. The enemy command ship was enormous, easily 10 times the size of any human vessel. It moved through space like a living mountain, its weapons charging for a massive attack. "All ships," he ordered, "concentrate fire on the command ship. Everything we have." The human fleet turned to face the approaching giant. 8 small ships against one massive enemy. It should have been impossible odds, but humans had never cared much about impossible odds. The Ravager command ship fired its main weapon. A wave of energy swept across space, draining power from everything it touched. Even the backup systems on some human ships flickered and went dark. But the humans kept fighting. They used manual controls and chemical weapons. They fired railguns and launched missiles with clockwork timers. They fought like their ancestors had fought in the trenches of Earth, with determination and fury. The command ship shuddered under the combined attack. Its hull cracked. Strange lights flickered inside it. For the first time since the battle began, the Ravagers seemed afraid. They had come expecting to feed on helpless prey. Instead, they had found predators. Captain Velthari pressed his face against the small window of his emergency shelter and watched the impossible battle outside. The human ships moved like hunters, working together in ways that seemed almost magical. They were so much smaller than the Ravager fleet, but they fought with a coordination that made his chest ache with wonder. "How are they doing that?" whispered Neela, his communications officer. She was watching over his shoulder, her skin flickering with amazed blue light. "I do not know," admitted Velthari. "The Council archives say humans are primitive. They say humans only know how to destroy things. But what he was seeing was not just destruction. It was art. The human ships danced between the Ravager vessels, striking and moving before their enemies could respond. When one human ship was in trouble, the others came to help it immediately. They never left anyone behind. The emergency radio crackled to life. "Captain Velthari, this is Commander Hyun-woo. Are you and your crew safe?" "Yes," replied Velthari. "We are alive, but how are you winning? There are so many of them." "We are not winning yet," said Hyun-woo, "but we are not losing either. Can you tell us anything about these creatures? Any weaknesses?" Velthari thought about what he had learned during the attack. "Their ships seem to be alive in some way. When we hit them, they bleed, and the creatures themselves feed on energy. Life energy. They become stronger when they kill." "That explains why they wanted to board our ships instead of just destroying them," said Hyun-woo. "They want to feed on us." "Yes. But Commander, there is something else. When they first attacked us, their leader sent a message. It was not meant for us. I think they were reporting to someone else." The radio was quiet for a moment. Then Hyun-woo asked, "What kind of message?" "They spoke of running from something. Something they called the Devourers. The Ravagers are not the real threat. They are fleeing from something much worse." Velthari heard explosions in the background of the transmission. The human commander was fighting a battle while talking to him. "We will worry about that later," said Hyun-woo. "Right now, we need to save you and stop these Ravagers." The transmission ended. Velthari looked at his crew. They were all staring at him with wide eyes. "The humans are fighting to save us," said Theron, his navigation officer, "even though we have never helped them, even though the Council rejected them." "Humans are supposed to be selfish," added Corin, his science officer. "The Council taught us that they only care about themselves." Velthari said nothing. He was thinking about everything the Council had told him about humans. They came from a death world where everything was hostile. They had fought brutal wars against each other. They were violent and unpredictable and dangerous. But they had also answered his distress call. They had come to help strangers who feared them. They were fighting impossible odds to save people they had never met. Maybe the Council was wrong about humans. Outside, the battle continued. The massive Ravager command ship was damaged but still fighting. Its weapons had drained the power from several human ships, but somehow the humans kept fighting anyway. They used weapons that did not need power. They fought with tools that seemed primitive but effective. Suddenly, one of the human ships broke away from the main battle. It was heading straight for the Harmony's light. "Captain," called Neela urgently, "one of the human ships is approaching us." Velthari felt his stomach tighten. Maybe the humans had decided to claim his ship as payment for their help. Maybe they wanted to study Council technology. Maybe they were no better than the Ravagers after all. "This is Dr. Hae-won of the medical. Ship Dagu's Hope," came a voice over the radio. "We are here to help your wounded." "Medical ship?" asked Velthari, confused. Yes. We brought medical supplies and doctors. Can we dock with your vessel? Velthari looked at his crew. Several of them were injured from the Ravager attack. Their ship's medical bay had been destroyed. They had been trying to treat their wounds with emergency supplies. Yes, he said. Please dock with our port airlock. The human medical ship was small and painted white with red crosses on its hull. It connected to the Harmony's light with a gentle bump. Velthari and his crew made their way through the damaged corridors to the airlock. When the door opened, Velthari saw his first human in person. Dr. Haywan was shorter than he had expected, with dark hair and kind eyes. She wore a white coat with many pockets full of medical tools. Hello, she said in careful galactic standard. I am here to help. Behind her came two more humans carrying medical equipment. They moved carefully through the damaged ship, making sure not to break anything. You are not what I expected, admitted. Velthari. Dr. Haywan smiled. What did you expect? Something more frightening. Humans can be frightening when we need to be, said Dr. Haywan. But we are also doctors and teachers and artists. We are not just soldiers. She began examining the wounded Zephyrians. Her hands were gentle as she checked their injuries. She spoke softly to each patient, trying to calm their fears. Your physiology is fascinating, she said as she worked. You are much more delicate than humans. What would be a minor injury for us could be fatal for you. Is that why the Council fears humans? Asked Velthari. Because you are so much stronger? Dr. Haywan paused in her work. Partly, but I think there is more to it. Your people evolved on peaceful worlds. You never needed to learn how to fight. You solved problems with cooperation and technology. And humans? Humans evolved on a world that tried to kill us every day. We learned to be tough because we had to be. We learned to fight because the alternative was death. She continued treating the wounded crew members. Her medical equipment was different, from Council technology, but it worked well. The injured Zephyrians began to recover quickly. Dr. Haywan, called one of her assistants. We are getting reports from the battle. The Ravager command ship is retreating. Retreating? Asked Velthari. The doctor nodded. Human tactics work well against enemies who have never faced them before. The Ravagers expected to fight with energy weapons and shields. Instead, they got old-fashioned kinetic weapons and explosives. But how did the humans coordinate so well? Their ships moved like they shared one mind. Humans have been fighting in groups for thousands of years, explained Dr. Haywan. We learned to work together because alone we would die. Your people never needed to learn that skill. Velthari thought about this. The Galactic Council had advanced technology and great wisdom, but they had forgotten how to fight. They had forgotten how to be afraid. Maybe they had forgotten some important truths about survival. Doctor, he said, what will happen now? Will the humans demand payment for helping us? Payment? Dr. Haywan looked surprised. You sent a distress call. Someone needed help. That is payment enough. But your people risked their lives for strangers. Yes, that is what you do when someone needs help. The radio in the medical bay crackled to life. This is Commander Hyun-woo to all ships. The Ravager fleet is retreating. We have won this battle. Cheers. Came from the human medical team. Dr. Haywan smiled at Velthari. Your crew is safe now, she said. But I think this is just the beginning. What do you mean? You said the Ravagers were fleeing from something called the Devourers. If these Ravagers are afraid of something, then that something must be very dangerous indeed. Velthari felt a chill run down his spine. He had been so focused on the immediate threat that he had forgotten about the larger danger. The Council needs to know about this, he said. Yes, agreed Dr. Haywan. And they need to know that humans are willing to help. Whatever is coming, we will face it together. For the first time in his life, Velthari began to think that maybe the galaxy needed Deathworlders after all. The Galactic Council homeworld had never seen ships like these before. 8 human vessels approached the beautiful crystal city that floated in space, their hulls scarred from battle, and their weapons still warm from recent fighting. Behind them followed the rescued Council ship Harmony's Light, its elegant hull cracked, but its crew alive. Admiral Dong Hyun stood on the bridge of his flagship. the Inchun's vengeance, and watched millions of alien faces pressed against viewing windows. The council citizens had come to see the Deathworlders who had saved one of their ships. Some looked curious. Many looked afraid. "Sir," called Communications Officer Eugene, "we are receiving thousands of transmissions from the planet. Most of them are asking us to leave immediately. And the others? They want to know how we defeated the Ravagers." Dong Hyun smiled grimly. The battle had cost them dearly. 2 human ships were badly damaged. 17 crew members were dead. 43 more were wounded. But they had saved the alien crew and learned something important about the threats. "Facing the galaxy, this is Council Traffic Control," came a nervous voice over the radio. "Human ships, you are ordered to maintain distance from our planet. You will be met by escort vessels." "This is Admiral Dong Hyun of the Terran Defense Fleet," he replied. "We are here to return your people and share important information. We request permission to dock." There was a long pause. Then a different voice came on the radio, older and more confident. "This is Counselor Ethmaran, Speaker for Defense. Admiral, your actions have saved Council lives. You will be granted temporary docking privileges, but only the minimum crew necessary." "Understood," said Dong Hyun. "We appreciate your trust." The human fleet was guided to a docking station on the edge of the Crystal City. It was clear that the Council did not want the Deathworlder ships too close to their population centers. Dong Hyun did not blame them. Human ships looked dangerous because they were dangerous. Captain Velthari had requested to accompany the human delegation. His crew was safe, but he insisted that the Council needed to hear the truth about what had happened. Dr. Haewon had also volunteered to come, bringing medical data about Ravager weapons and tactics. The Council chamber was a magnificent room, made of living crystal that sang softly in harmonious tones. Representatives from dozens of species sat in flowing chairs that adjusted to their different body types. At the center of the room stood the speaking circle, where important matters were discussed. Dong Hyun had never been in a room full of aliens before. There were beings made of light, others that looked like walking plants, and some that seemed to be composed entirely of gas held in containment suits. All of them were staring at the small group of humans with expressions that ranged from curiosity to fear. "The Council recognizes Captain Velthari of the Harmony's Light," announced the speaker. "You may present your report." Velthari stepped forward, his pale skin glowing with nervous energy. "Honored Council, 3 days ago my ship was attacked by creatures calling themselves Ravagers. Our weapons were useless against them. Our shields provided no protection. We were helpless." He paused and looked at the human delegation. "In desperation, I sent a distress call to anyone who might help us. The only ones who answered were the humans." A murmur went through the council chamber. Many of the representatives looked uncomfortable. Humans arrived with 8 ships against over 200 Ravager vessels," continued Velthari. "They should have been destroyed in minutes. Instead, they won. They saved my crew and drove off the attackers." Counselor Ethmaran leaned forward. "How is this possible? Our records indicate that human technology is primitive compared to Council standards." Admiral Dong Hyun stepped into the speaking circle. "Honored Counselor, you are correct that our technology is simpler than yours. But sometimes simple solutions work better than complex ones." "Explain." "The Ravagers use weapons that drain energy from their targets. Your ships depend on energy, shields and power cores. When those systems fail, your ships are helpless. Human ships have backup systems that use chemical power instead of energy cores. We can fight even when our main systems are down." Dr. Haewon moved forward. "There is something else the Council needs to know. We captured data from the Ravager ships before they retreated. They are not the real threat." The Council chamber fell silent. "The Ravagers are fleeing from something they call the Devourers," continued Dr. Haewon. "According to their data, these Devourers are consuming entire star systems in the galactic core. The Ravagers are not conquerors. They are refugees, desperate refugees who will do anything to survive." She activated a small device that projected a holographic map of the galaxy. A dark region was spreading slowly outward from the center, like an infection. "At current rate of expansion, the Devourers will reach Council space within 50 years, said Dr. Haewon. "The Ravagers we fought were just the first wave of what is coming." The representatives began talking urgently among themselves. Some species communicated with flashing lights, others with musical tones. the chamber filled with a cacophony of alien voices. "Order!" called the speaker. "The council will have order!" When the noise died down, Counselor Ethmaran addressed the humans directly. "What do you propose we do about this threat?" Admiral Dong Hyun had been expecting this question. "Counselor, the council has advanced technology and great wisdom, but you have forgotten how to fight. The humans have knowledge of warfare that could help defend the galaxy. You want us to become like you? Violent and aggressive? No," said Dong Hyun firmly. "I want you to survive. The Devourers will not negotiate. They will not accept surrender. They will simply consume everything in their path. Violence may be distasteful to you, but it is sometimes necessary." Captain Velthari stepped forward again. "Honored Council, I have seen what humans can do. They are not the monsters we thought they were. Yes, they are capable of great violence, but they are also capable of great sacrifice. They risked their lives to save strangers who had rejected them. The human named Hyunwoo came aboard a damaged ship to save our people," added Velthari. "The Dr. Haiwan treated our wounded without asking for payment. These are not the actions of savages." Counselor Ethmaran studied the humans for a long moment. "What exactly are you proposing?" "An alliance," said Admiral Dong Hyun. "Your technology combined with our military knowledge. Your wisdom guiding our strength. Together, we might have a chance against whatever is coming. And if we refuse, then you will face the Devourers alone. And based on what we saw of the Ravagers, I do not think your current defenses will be enough." The council chamber erupted, in debate again. Some representatives were clearly terrified of the humans. Others seemed intrigued by the possibility of an alliance. A few appeared to be arguing that the threat was not real. Finally, the speaker called for quiet. "The council will recess to consider this proposal. Admiral Dong Hyun, you and your people are welcome to remain as our guests while we deliberate." As the session ended, Velthari approached the human delegation. "Thank you," he said simply, "for everything." "Thank you for speaking for us," replied Dong Hyun. "That took courage." "I told them the truth. That is all." Dr. Haiwan looked around the magnificent chamber. "Do you think they will agree to the alliance?" "Some of them will," said Velthari. "Fear is a powerful motivator, even for peaceful people. And after what you did for us, many council members are beginning to think that maybe we judged humans too harshly." Admiral Dong Hyun nodded. "Fear alone will not be enough. They need to believe that we can be trusted, that we fight for more than just ourselves." "You proved that when you answered our distress call," said Velthari. "No one forced you to help us. You chose to help because it was the right thing to do." Through the crystal walls of the chamber, they could see the human fleet floating in space beside the council station. The ships looked small and battered compared to the elegant council vessels. But they had proven that sometimes the strongest weapon was the will to fight for others. Whatever decision the council made, the galaxy had changed. For the first time in centuries, the Deathworlders and the civilized races were talking to each other as equals, and in the dark between the stars, ancient hungers stirred and began their slow advance toward inhabited space. The real war had not yet begun,